Welcome to Morning Joe and the Pro. We've got a new pro in here for Friday. It is Bryan Leonard joining me today, one of my partners in crime here at WagerTalk. And of course, I am Marco D'Angelo. It's Friday, March 15th. Bryan, conference tournaments, we're going to get to that in a moment. They are in full swing right now, but I can't possibly open a show up with you right now if I don't ask the question, because you haven't had this feeling for a long time as a fan of the Cleveland Browns. What kind of excitement are you experiencing right now heading into the draft and what they're going to do to add further to this team, and the excitement you had with Baker Mayfield last year, and now you got Odell Beckham Jr. in the house to throw the football to? Going to be exciting times for the Browns, and I hear footsteps in Pittsburgh coming from Cleveland.
Well, they've already passed up Pittsburgh here, as we've already known that the Steelers, half of the excitement, and I love the Penguins, I love the Pirates, I've always hated the Steelers. Half of the excitement is knowing the Steelers are a third-place ball club this year, and as good as Cleveland is going to be, based on the players they brought in, it's an overreaction at this point. I mean, everybody's so excited. These guys have never played together before. They're going to have to cut some other players that are pretty good players to pay these guys some money. Don't get overly excited, but it is nice that we've got a team that has a possibility to win 9 or more games this season.
Okay, first of all, I mean, this is a drug-free program, all right? And the fact that you come on with your opening statement and said that the Steelers are third-place finisher in the AFC North. What were you on? What have you already been smoking this morning, buddy? Because you are high if you think the Steelers are finishing third in that division. Who's beating them? It's Cleveland and it's Pittsburgh. Come on, please.
Look at your background here. Everything is Steelers all over the place. You're obviously a homer, and you're not able to see how the Steelers. Who's got the worst coach in the division? Well, probably the Steelers now, that since Cincinnati's going to make a change or whatever, hopefully. So once everything is done there. So I've never been a big fan of the Steelers coach. If you're a player on the Steelers right now and all the things that these guys can't get along with Big Ben, he's your leader. That's not something that I'm looking forward to seeing if I'm a Steelers fan, is he has alienated 2 of your top players on the team. The general consensus in Pittsburgh, no, really, what is it? I mean, we've got friends, well, as close to friends as you can get, that live in Pittsburgh. What are their thoughts on this?
I'm telling you right now that Big Ben's going to have a good year this year. He's got something to prove. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, those are 2 of the biggest divas in the NFL, and good luck to Le'Veon Bell going to the Jets. He's going to see what a struggle it's going to be for him. It's not going to be easy there. Antonio Brown, this is a team, he's going to a team, Derek Carr can, have a decent year. He's not Ben Roethlisberger. I'm waiting to see what happens the first time there is an explosion from Antonio Brown and how John Gruden handles it, because Gruden will be a different coach than Mike Tomlin, who, unfortunately, the mistake he made, he treated his superstars with, kid gloves and let them get away with too much. And that I will agree with you on with Mike Tomlin, and I also agree on that when it comes to in-game coaching, and making moves and adjustments, he's the worst. No question about that. But there's still a ton of talent in Pittsburgh. And as I've told you thousands of times, Bryan, I know that you are in withdrawal. You want to see one of those Super Bowl trophies in Cleveland. I told you, you're only 2.5 hours away. Drive to Pittsburgh. You can look at 6 of them. I'll take you. I'll even take you for Permani's and Quaker Steak and Lube afterwards.
If I'm going to Pittsburgh, it's not to see all the trophies. It's to see the people in Pittsburgh, a good bunch of people. And I love the city of Pittsburgh. And even though we were enemies when we lived in Cleveland and Pittsburgh, I actually root for Pittsburgh teams other than the Steelers. So, Cleveland didn't have a hockey team for a long time. Still don't. So obviously, I'm rooting for the Penguins to play the Vegas Knights in the
I,
championship.
that would be a dream matchup for me to have the Penguins and the Knights in the Stanley Cup Finals. Let's shift gears real quick to baseball. We just finished last week, Brian. You and I were in Arizona. We took in some spring training games. You took in quite a few Leinenkugel beers. And let me tell you that Brian is a world-class Leinenkugel drinker. He picks out his stadiums that we're going to by the beers that they have for sale at the stadium. And then what was the last one? Milwaukee Stadium. You actually found it on draft there, Leinenkugel. You want to talk about a kid on Christmas morning when he saw that they had it on draft. This guy just went nuts. I was more excited about the brats at Milwaukee Stadium, but you were happy about the Leinenkugels.
Well, I'm very happy about it because it's a seasonal beer, and it means spring is here. And my first beer is always in spring training, so that means spring is here and baseball is here, and I'm awful excited about that. But we go to spring training every year, and other than enjoying ourselves and going out to you're a food expert, going to your fancy restaurants and all of that, and me drinking my beer, we also take in the baseball games. And I've never bet preseason baseball, spring baseball before in my life, and I always thought it was silly that people would. But I'm getting into it this year, and I'm also giving it out to my extended service clients. And one of the things I look for is, we've been to all these stadiums. It's not like a major league stadium where a team has got to drive 500 miles or fly into this city and watch the games. All these games in Arizona are within 50 miles of each other. And if you're a fan of the Dodgers, you go to all the Dodgers games on the road, and it's just the way it is. So the home fielded value in these spring training games is virtually nil. Now, the one thing I will tell you is when they make out the lineups in these games, especially when they have a split squad game, they like to have the better players playing at their home stadium. That's where they expect their fans to be. So you are going to get a little bit better players playing at home than you will be on the road. But keep in mind, these guys only play 3 or 4 innings. So all of a sudden, you've got 3 or 4 innings, and then they're putting in, guys at the bottom of their roster that are going to be not even on the 40-man roster. So we get a lot of advantage on playing road underdogs in spring training. And if there's anything for those that are brand new to this, that's one thing I want to give out is there's tons of value on these spring training games and playing those road underdogs, especially if it's a bad team. For example, I believe Miami's won 6 straight. Miami's terrible, but they want to win these games as opposed to like the Red Sox or the Yankees or the teams that are really good. They just want to get out of there without any injuries. So plenty of value on these road dogs, especially when you're playing the Baltimores, the Miamis. The teams are going to be really bad, and those are nice ways to make some profit going into the season.
Good stuff from Brian on spring training. A little quick story for you with Brian. I won't tell the real embarrassing ones with you, Brian, on spring training. But Brian's wife, Renee, loves the fact whenever I go to spring training and she's there because she knows she is going to eat well. Being the guy, I do write a food column here in Vegas, and I like to eat, and we make sure we eat at some nice places. But full disclosure, first year that I went to spring training with Brian, I let him call the shots where we were eating all week because I hadn't been to Arizona before for spring training, so I figured he's got some places he knows where to go. Well, we were there an entire week. Finally, he let me pick on the final day that we were there. He says, "Hey, where do you want to eat at, Marco?" And I said, "Brian, I don't give a shit where we eat at as long as I can actually use a fork, because every place that you pick during the course of the week, forks were not, part of the repertoire for our dining experience. I was tired of using my hands and eating fast food all week, and that was my only requirement for the last day of eating with Brian on spring training." Deny it?
No, that's definitely the truth, and that's the way it is in real life, because I don't have the hour or 2 to spend in a fancy restaurant getting the food because I have better things to do. I want to handicap. I want to bet. And as you pointed out the other day, I like to go see a movie once in a while.
Yeah, this guy does. He gets a lot in and still manages to get into bed quite early in the evening. That's why whenever we do find a place to stay at in Arizona, it's got to be within 15 minutes of talking stick. So at night when Brian goes beddy bye, Marco can go to the casino and play some cards. All right, let's get into college basketball. Big day yesterday, Brian. We had some scares, couple upsets, but some of the big teams got off to slow starts, but then got the ball rolling later. You're going to give us a free play here in one of the games right here in Las Vegas at the Thomas and Mack. Now, yesterday I gave out San Diego State over UNLV, easy winner there. We've got Fresno State hooking up against Utah State. And this is one of those examples yesterday. Both Nevada and Utah State kind of got off to slow starts, then got things going later on. Do you think those two teams, Brian, are just, they're looking ahead because we know what happened the last time those two teams met at Utah State? Utah State pulled off the upset, and then it was a storm-the-floor game, and the Nevada players were really upset. In fact, the one player coming off the court when he got into the backside heading to the locker room actually smashed the glass, can't talk this morning, on one of the cases there in the hallway, and things got pretty heated. Is that a case of them looking ahead to that final championship game?
It possibly could be, but that's the problem you run into when you get into these teams that are going to make the tournament. Nevada's going to be in the tournament. We saw the same thing out of Gonzaga here the other day. And that's something that I always look for in these tournament plays, is if there's a team that's going to make the tournament and it's not really going to affect their seeding, isn't it advantageous to that team to lose? And that way St. Mary's gets into the tournament and the conference gets extra money. It would not surprise me if Nevada does not win this. Obviously, if they play Utah State, it may have a different feeling when they get to that game. But, Utah's, whether it be pro or college lately, has had some problems from their fan base. And I know when Utah played in the Mountain West out here, there was a lot of fights in UNLV games when they played Utah, and it's something they didn't have against any other. Now, I'm not going to blame the people in Utah over it, but they are proud people, a lot of them being Mormons, and they get out of there and they get to Las Vegas where you're able to do the things you can't do in probably Utah, that they are able to get out. It's sort of like being in the Catholic junior high school, and all of a sudden you come to a public high school. The kids were always wilder, and I think that's the way it is for these Utah fans when they get out of Utah and come to Las Vegas. So, but yeah, it's something you got to keep in mind when you're looking at these tournaments. Is we saw earlier that Texas Tech gets beat. Well, Texas Tech's going to be a really good, really well-seeded team. So you find a lot of the times where these teams would rather have the time off than compete long in these tournaments, and that's something you got to keep an eye on.
All right, for where are we going for your play? You're looking at that Fresno State, Utah State game?
Yeah, I am looking at Fresno State and Utah State, and I have these teams ranked very equal. In fact, both teams had won their previous matchups by 1 point. So obviously on the season, these teams are equal. The line currently is at 3.5 or 4. I think it's a little bit high here. I break down these games on what teams are going to try to do and what the other teams are going to let them do. And when you're playing on a neutral field, you always got to worry about the shooting from three-point range. But Fresno played at UNLV earlier this season to put up 83 points against the Rebels. Not the same kind of team that Utah State has, but it's a team that shot very well on these rims in the earlier matchup in this building. And Fresno State shoots a lot of threes. 47.3% of their shots are threes, which is one of the highest in basketball, college basketball, but they hit 38.7% of them. So they take a lot of threes. They shoot a nice percentage from three. And when you're taking a look at Utah State, it's a team that shoots underneath the basket. 42.3% of their shots are at the rim. Fresno State actually is pretty good defensively in that range. So I think if Fresno can hit these three-pointers, if you're looking for upsets, straight-up upsets, I like to play these teams that are an underdog that shoot a lot of threes, especially if the other team doesn't defend a lot of threes. On the season, Utah State's allowing 35.9% from three-point range, 39.7% of shots taken. So they will allow Fresno to take these shots. these teams start getting those shots, they build up their confidence. So not only do I like Fresno State plus the 4 points here, I'm going to put half my bet on the money line. Right now, you're looking at like 150 on the money line. And you keep in mind, these teams are equal, the 2 games they've played so far this season. When you're taking a look at how teams have played at home and on the road, Fresno has been much better on the road. They're about 4 points better playing on the road, where Utah State is a better home team than they are playing on the road. I think Fresno wins this game outright, and that'll be my free play here on the video.
All right, and speaking of plays, you've got a big play going tonight at WagerTalk. You got a 5% play up. It is in nighttime action, and I'll tell you what, we're going to do a special, Brian. We appreciate you being on the show, and for everybody that had to put up looking at you, we want to reward them because, it's just, I'm sorry, I had to do it, and I think they deserve at least $10 for looking at you for 15 minutes. So we're going to use coupon code BL10. That's BL10. And I'll tell you what, you use that coupon code, you can get Brian's 5% play tonight. And that is, what is that play tonight? Your Big Ten game of the month?
Big Ten game of the month. And I've been very selective in these conference tournament games. So I haven't given out a lot. And I expect to win this one easily. It's got everything in there that I look for in a big play.
And the one thing with Brian, when you do get plays from Brian, you get a complete analysis with the play, so you'll know why Brian likes the game. And instead of paying $30, use coupon code BL10, and you can get it for just $20, $10 savings for you. All right, I'm going to give you a free play as well. Let's see if we can match yesterday's success with San Diego State. And I'm going to go to the Big East tournament, Brian. And boy, I tell you, back in the old days, I loved the Big East tournament. I think for me, that was obviously because Pitt played in there, but it was the most enjoyable tournament to watch. Those teams just banged on one another back in the old days. It's changed a little with the teams that are in there now. But I'm looking at this one. We've got Seton Hall and Marquette squaring off. And Seton Hall's played Marquette tough in both of the meetings this season. They split games, both teams winning on their home floor. But Marquette only won by 4 at home, 70-66. And then Seton Hall beat them 73-64 at Seton Hall. But I'm looking at this one. And when they played that second time against Marquette, Seton Hall, they went there after Marquette had a series of games where they had a 4-game losing streak right to close out the season. They were the second best team all year. It was actually Marquette was leading the pack for most of the way, and then Villanova got hot at the end of the season. They started a little bit slower, Villanova. We know they had to replace a lot of players from last year's team. But now Villanova got hot at the end of the season, and they won that big showdown game February 27th against Marquette. And it was after that loss, it was like Marquette went into this little funk for the next 3 games. We talk about teams losing the same game twice, Brian. I think that big showdown against Villanova, they were sky high to go into Villanova. If they won that game, they would have swept the season series, and that would have gave them, the stranglehold on the conference title, but they didn't, and then they lose the next game against Creighton, then went on the road against Seton Hall and lost, and then finished out the season in a meaningless game against Georgetown. They're back on track now. They showed up yesterday after shooting 38% and 34% the last 2 games of the season. When they were in that funk, they shot over 50% yesterday against St. John's. And St. John's, the darling anytime you go to the Big East tournament, Brian, because it's played at Madison Square Garden. We know the history there in St. John's and how they play. But what I like about this Marquette team is they do turn up the defense. This is a team that if you look back, yesterday they held St. John's to 32%. The final 2 games of the season, they did give up 43, 45% shooting. But before that, 39, 34, 38%. They're lockdown defense, and I think they're going to get the job done today against Seton Hall. Also have a little stat for you. Favorites of 3.5 to 9.5 points on a neutral court, revenging a same-season loss. Or excuse me, this one's not a neutral one. revenging a loss, same season loss, and the opponent is playing their second game in 3 days. Obviously, when you're in the tournaments in neutral courts, you're going to be playing those type of games 2 and 3 days. The revenging favorite is 123-67 against the spread, Brian. That's a league-wide stat. And Ralph always talks about the difference between trends and stats like that. When it's stats like that, it's every team in college basketball. Because you know when you're looking at just the team trend, especially in college basketball, it's a situation where if it's something that's more than 1 or 2 years as far as a trend goes, those players aren't there that created that trend, obviously. But this is something that's league-wide. If you do want a stat for this year, Marquette was 15-8 against the spread as a favorite this year. I'm going to go ahead and take Marquette and lay the points with them. Going to throw out one more coupon for everybody. March Madness is here. If you want to get the rest of the tournaments all the way through the championship game, all college basketball, $275 is the price. But if you use coupon code MM175, you can get it's MM100, you'll get it for $175. Get $100 off. You can check that out. And be sure to check out Brian's big 5% play tonight. Brian, appreciate you being on board, filling in for the Prez today. He's not here. You want to take any shots at the Prez? We can say anything about him?
No, I won't take a shot at the Prez, but I do want to touch base on the 5% play I've got going today. 13-4 on our 5-star percent plays, and I haven't had one in 19 days. It's not like I put a lot of these things out. And regarding your coupon there, I'm assuming that's because of M&Ms, because you snack on candy all day long.
Yeah. Okay. March Madness, buddy. M&M. But yes, I do like M&Ms. So I'm a peanut guy. I like M&M peanuts better. But
I'm with you.
You're with you. And and then whenever I'm really feeling good, we'll go high class and go with the M&M almonds. Yeah.
Oh, you're getting crazy now. You're going to want to pull out a fork on that?
No, kid. Too hard of a shell to use the fork. But we will find something that we can eat with a fork. And but chicken wings are finger food, and that is its own food group in the Marco household. So, guys, he's Bryan Leonard. You can follow him at BLeonardSports on Twitter. You can follow me at Marco in Vegas. Hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. We will be back next week. I guess the Prez is going to come back from vacation. He's, skiing down the slopes in Utah. Just a neighboring state. Maybe he gets a good head of steam. He could ski right on in here to Vegas and stop by, do some videos with us. But no, he won't. We'll see him probably in a couple months. If poker season's coming here in Vegas, we will see Prez during the WSOP. All right, guys, good luck today. He's Bryan Leonard and Marco D'Angelo. Cash some tickets, guys. We'll be back next week with the Morning Joe and the Pro. Thanks for watching.